When did you have to choose between a beautiful lie and an ugly truth? My mother and aunt said I had 24 hours to decide whether to tell my dying grandmother that Grandpa died protecting her or to let her die believing he abandoned her for another woman. The doctors gave her 2 weeks at most, and she kept asking when Grandpa Harold would visit. Mom was crying because Grandma had been cursing his name for 3 years, while Aunt insisted telling the truth would be cruel. They both turned to me because I had power of attorney, and we couldn't wait any longer. I'd been agonizing over this same question since the night I found them after the break-in, and held Grandpa's hand while he died. The case for telling her was simple because Grandma deserved to know Harold died protecting her from a home invasion, instead of thinking he ran off with someone younger from the bank. She'd spent 3 years writing letters to him that started with, "I'm sorry I got old," and putting on red lipstick every morning even though she could barely breathe because she wanted to look good when he came back. Mom found her saving half her meals in case Harold returned hungry, and she'd lost 30 pounds believing she wasn't pretty enough anymore. But the case for protecting her was that her mind had erased the trauma for a reason. The brain doctor said forcing her to remember the robbery could break her completely. Aunt had watched Grandma sob so hard she had a minor stroke the one time a nurse accidentally mentioned Grandpa was dead, and when she woke up she went right back to being angry at him for leaving. The anger gave her strength while grief might kill her. But then I found the video recording on Grandpa's old phone from that night when he'd accidentally turned on camera mode in his pocket. After the intruders left and Grandpa was dying, he didn't know the phone was recording, and spent his last 2 minutes talking to Grandma even though she was unconscious. "Helen, baby, please wake up because I need to tell you something important," he wheezed through blood in his lungs. "If I don't make it, you're going to forget what happened tonight, and that's okay, because your beautiful brain always protects you. But you might think I left you, and baby, I would never leave you. Not in a million years. So please remember, I love you more than my own heartbeat. And if you forget everything else, just remember, Harold loves Helen forever, like we carved in that oak tree in 1962. The recording ended with sirens approaching, and I realized he already knew her mind would protect her by making her forget, and he was desperately trying to plant one truth deep enough to survive the trauma. So I made my choice to tell her the truth because Grandpa had spent his last breath trying to make sure she knew he loved her, and I couldn't let his final wish die with her. I spent that whole night practicing how I'd say it, and writing down the exact words he'd said on the recording, so I could repeat them perfectly. When I walked into her room the next morning, my hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold the paper, but I knew this was what Grandpa would want. When she woke up clear-minded that evening, I told her Grandpa died protecting her from intruders, and his last words were, "Harold loves Helen forever." She stared at me for a long moment, then said, "I know, baby," because I dream about him saying that every night, and I realized her sleeping mind had held on to his words, even while her waking mind couldn't. We told her 6 more times over 3 days, and each time she'd cry but also say, "That sounds like something my Harold would do," as if some part of her always knew. The 3rd time I played the recording and she held the phone against her chest, whispering, "There's my Harold." The 5th time she listened to it, she said, "I wasted 3 years being angry when I could have been missing him." I told her that anger was just how love looked when it didn't know where to go. The last time she listened before she died, she was barely conscious, but when I whispered that Harold loved her forever, she smiled and said, "I always knew he'd never leave me." Then she added something that destroyed me. "Tell him I'll be right there." She said it like she could see him waiting. "Tell him Helen loves Harold forever too." She died 2 hours later, looking fully at peace for the first time in years. Mom said at least she died knowing the truth, and Aunt said maybe forgetting was a gift because she got to fall in love with him 7 times. I realized Grandpa spent his last breath trying to plant a memory in her broken mind, and 3 years later it bloomed just in time for her to carry it home.